In Morocco, desire can feel dangerous. Maybe that's why one stolen moment between two digital nomads spiraled into something neither of them were ready for. A Kenyan travel blogger, a British software developer. One spark in Marrakesh that should have ended there, but didn't. Now they're about to learn what happens when a simple trip becomes the kind of love story that's hard to walk away from. Part 1. That night, Marrakesh should have been humming bright, loud, alive. Instead, it went silent. A soft, collective gasp swept through the streets as every light blinked off. A ripple of darkness rolled over the Medina, swallowing neon signs, music, conversations, everything. Tanasha waited in the lobby, her gadgets finally plugged in and charging, her small promise to herself that she'd start working the moment she reached her room. She felt the blackout before she understood it. The lights snapped off first, clean, sudden, absolute. Her camera, already limping on its last bar, gave a soft, helpless beep and shut down. The wireless mic followed a beat later, its battery long drained after hours of takes. Then her laptop screen froze mid-frame, her own stunned expression trapped in pixelated purgatory. As if even the machine was too stunned to process what had just happened. And in the sudden dark, she felt the silence close in like a held breath. "Oh, come on," she said into the void. Not tonight. She was supposed to upload a branded travel segment before midnight. And now? Nothing but the faint smell of cardamom tea and darkness pressing in from all sides. Somewhere deeper in the riad, footsteps tapped sharply on mosaic tiles, precise, annoyed. The pacing woman cursed at the dark, unmistakably British. Arden. Tanasha had noticed her earlier at check-in. Tall, cool, unsettlingly composed. Arden had the kind of bone structure that made her look like she'd been accidentally sculpted by a Renaissance master. Now her voice cut through the dark. Bloody perfect. I was in the middle of a classified diagnostic. Classified. Oh wow, someone's important, Tanasha muttered. I heard that, Arden shot back. Good, Tanasha said, folding her arms though Arden could hardly see it. I meant it. A lantern flickered to life between them, the riad host handing it over apologetically before retreating upstairs. And with that soft amber glow, they saw each other properly. Tanasha's curls framed her face like a soft halo in the dim light. Arden's eyes, icy, sharp, were narrowed in irritation. Total opposites. Is the internet also down everywhere? Tanasha asked. Looks like it's a full-on outage, Arden said, jaw tight as she inspected her router like it had personally betrayed her. Could be global. Could be a cyber-attack. Tanasha snorted. Relax. Probably just the universe telling us to unplug for 5 minutes. Arden looked at her like she'd spoken heresy. I don't unplug. No kidding. Tanasha quipped, her sarcasm palpable. For a moment they stood there, the distant rumble of a sandstorm rolling toward the city. Tanasha watched as Arden checked her phone again, then again. Like she could will the signal back with sheer force of will. Okay, Tanasha sighed. You're spiraling. I don't spiral, Arden said. But the edge in her voice cracked, just for half a second. Tanasha softened. Everything will come back in the morning. The world can wait. No, Arden said quietly, it really can't. The riad host reappeared, breathless. Madame, we have a problem, he said. A group arrived unexpectedly. The storm has made travel impossible. There is only one room left. Tanasha blinked. One room. As in one bed. As in. One everything, he said, wincing. Arden closed her eyes. Wonderful. Tanasha tried a smile. We're adults. We can share. Arden's lips pressed tight. We can inhabit the same physical space, yes. Sharing implies intimacy. Tanasha's eyebrows shot up. Wow. You're a joy, she remarked dryly. Arden's expression didn't change. And you're loud. Yet neither of them walked away. And the storm drew closer, a low growl across the desert. Part 2. Their shared room was warm, quiet, and far too small. A single brass lantern sat between them on a carved wooden table. A single bed covered in embroidered blankets. A single window rattling from the rising storm. Tanasha dropped her bag, trying to ignore how stiff Arden had gone. You can take the bed, Tanasha offered. I'm good with the floor. No, Arden said flatly. We're not doing the martyr routine. We're both using the bed. Tanasha raised a brow. Sharing implies intimacy, she said, tone amused and half-mocking. Arden glared and Tanasha grinned, unable to help herself. It was fun poking at someone so tightly wound. The bedspread shimmered with gold thread, mocking the tension between them. Arden stiffened. It's not intimacy. It's logistics. Right. Tanasha smirked. Logistical intimacy. Arden shot her a look sharp enough to cut through the storm outside. They sat on the bed, shoulders almost touching, but separated by a sliver of cool air. Silence stretched, soft but thick. Then, "You're oddly calm," Arden said quietly. Most people would be panicking about missed deadlines, broken equipment, total blackout. "Oh, trust me," Tanasha murmured, lying down, one arm under her head, feet dangling to the floor. "My soul is screaming. My brain is screaming. My clients are probably screaming. I just don't see the point of adding my vocal cords to that choir." Arden frowned at the ceiling. "So you pretend everything is fine?" Tanasha hummed. "Occupational hazard of being online for a living. You learn to curate the meltdown." A beat. A breath. A soft cracking of something between them. Arden turned slightly, the lantern catching the edge of her jaw. "What's the point of pretending if it doesn't fix anything?" "It buys time," Tanasha said. "To figure out who I'm supposed to be next." Arden went still, too still. Like someone who recognized that sentence too intimately. "You make it sound untethered," she said. Tanasha exhaled. "Maybe I am untethered." Arden didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was so measured it almost didn't sound like hers. "Tethers aren't safe. They can be cut." Tanasha studied her face. "And who cut yours?" Arden froze. A glint, alarm, hurt, something unguarded flashed in her eyes before she closed the door behind them again. "I don't discuss my past," she said, clipped. "Especially not with people I met 6 hours ago." Tanasha softened. "Okay. I'm not asking you to undress your soul on command." Arden stared at the floor. "Good. Because I wouldn't know how." The storm outside deepened. Like a low animal roar crawling along the riad walls. The window shuddered violently. Arden flinched. Tanasha sat up. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Arden said too fast. Another slam. A courtyard door whipping open. Wind howled through the building. Arden went rigid, hands shooting out instinctively, gripping Tanasha's wrist, tight, urgent. Tanasha moved closer, concerned, their faces now inches apart. The stormlight danced over Arden's cheekbones. Tanasha's breath caught. Arden's eyes darted between Tanasha's lips and eyes. Expression fleeting between terror and something else, something unreadable. Tanasha whispered, "It's just the wind." Arden didn't let go. Her voice dropped rough and unsteady. "You don't understand. Losing control, storms, chaos. It's not just discomfort for me." And there it was, a fracture. Real, raw, unintended. Tanasha cupped Arden's hand where it held her wrist. "Arden, you're allowed to not be okay." Arden's breath trembled. "No, I'm not." A beat. "People depend on me. I can't be weak." Her eyes went distant, haunted, almost. "Once, I missed something," she whispered. "Something small. One oversight. It cost my entire team and relationship greatly. That became a cautionary tale. My mistake. My responsibility. That's hardly." "No," Arden's jaw tightened. "So I stopped slipping. Stopped trusting. Stopped malfunctioning." Tanasha didn't move. Didn't breathe. She just let the moment hold. "You're not a malfunction," she said softly. Arden blinked hard, as if the sentence struck too close to a hidden wound. Their foreheads touched barely, just a brush of warmth. Arden leaned in, then recoiled, breath strangled. "I can't," she whispered. "I want to. I do. But I don't know how to want things without ruining them." Tanasha felt the ache of that truth down to her bones. "Then we go slow," she murmured. Arden shook her head sharply, walls snapping back into place, shoulders rigid. "No. Slow is still movement. Movement has consequences." She stood up, moved away from the bed, and started unpacking her gear. The distance settled between them again, quiet, aching, alive. The conversation between them veered into neutral territory. It stayed that way for the rest of the evening. Outside, the storm raged on. But something new lived in the space between them now. A tension not yet safe enough to cross, but too real to ignore.
All right. Quick break from the angst and romance. Let's talk about something every traveler knows too well. Flight delays. Is your flight delayed? Again? Did the airline agent smile like bad news was her side hustle? Well, you could actually get paid for that. Meet Compensaire. They handle the airline, the paperwork, all the drama, while you sit back and wait for your refund. All you do is enter your flight info. If you qualify, you could get up to $600 per flight. So next time your airline gives you lemons, squeeze compensation out of it. Use Compensaire. They only get paid if you do, so you have nothing to lose. Click the link below this video to claim what's yours. All right, back to the story.
Part 3. Morning arrived slowly, with a soft apricot glow spilling across the courtyard tiles. Soft light filtered through the window, brushing over Arden's profile. She sat at the edge of the bed, spine loose for the first time since Tanasha had met her. Tanasha shifted, voice groggy. "You didn't sleep, did you?" Arden shook her head. "Sleep and I are rarely on speaking terms these days." Tanasha sat beside her, not touching, but close enough. "Last evening was intense." Arden let out a low, humorless breath. Understatement of the decade. Tanasha waited. Arden surprised herself by continuing. "I'm sorry I pulled back," she said quietly. "I wasn't rejecting you." Tanasha frowned, tired but gentle. "Then what were you doing?" "Malfunctioning," Arden said. "It wasn't a joke." "Arden," Tanasha sighed. "I wasn't asking you for anything. Not last night." "That's the problem," Arden said, turning to face her. "I wanted something. I still do. And wanting things. Choosing people has never ended well for me." Tanasha swallowed, heart pulling tight. "You don't have to choose anything right now." Before Arden could respond, their phones lit up at once. Notifications detonated. Messages pouring in at blistering speed. Not because the blackout had ended, but because the network, after hours of silence, had surged back to life all at once. Tanasha winced as emails loaded. Arden paled as alerts stacked one after another, her face draining of warmth. It was like watching shutters slam closed in real time. Arden's posture snapped back into rigid precision. "Damn it," she muttered, scrolling with surgical speed. "I need to respond. I have to triage. There's protocol." Tanasha stood, packing slowly. Arden didn't look up at first. When she did, her voice was tight. "Why are you packing?" Tanasha tried to smile. It wobbled. "Because reality is back. And you look like you need to sprint into it." "I will confirm with reception if new rooms are now available." "I don't want you to go," Arden said instantly. Too instantly. Tanasha paused. "Arden, it's okay. Last night was a moment. A beautiful one. But you don't owe me the aftermath." Arden stood so fast the bedframe creaked. She actually reached out, then stopped midway, hand hovering helplessly. "It wasn't just a moment," she said quietly. "I panicked. That's what I do. But panic isn't rejection." Tanasha's lips parted. "Then what was it?" Arden struggled. Literally struggled. Shoulders rising, falling. Jaw flexing. Eyes flicking away, back, away again. Finally. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, voice cracking. "But I want to try. With you. Even if I'm terrible at it." Tanasha's heart stuttered painfully. "But the notifications," she whispered. "The workload. The crisis mode. You shut down the second the world turned back on." Arden closed the distance between them, slow, deliberate, afraid. "I shut down because I don't have a framework for this," she said. "For choosing someone despite everything demanding my attention." She swallowed. "I want to learn how to stay. Even when it scares me." Silence. Soft. Heavy. Hopeful. Tanasha took one step forward. Arden let out a breath she'd been holding all night. Tanasha cupped her jaw, gently, carefully, like Arden was a trembling animal deciding whether or not to trust the hand reaching out. And Arden leaned in. The kiss was slow, deep, thorough, not a rush, an arrival. When they broke apart, Tanasha rested her forehead to Arden's. "So what now?" she murmured, breath warm between them. "Now," Arden said, voice shaking with something that wasn't fear anymore, "we see if the connection survives our stay in Morocco." For a long moment, neither moved. The call to prayer drifted from a nearby minaret, soft and distant, as if the city itself was exhaling with them. Arden brushed her thumb over Tanasha's cheek. "You don't have to rush off to the next continent. Not yet." Tanasha chuckled quietly. "And you don't have to keep pretending you prefer solitude to this." Arden's lips curved. "I think I'm done pretending." Later, as Tanasha wove her way back through the evening bustle, camera still warm from a day spent documenting the Saadian tombs, her phone buzzed. A message from Arden. "Still offline for a few hours. Want to get a little lost with me tonight?" She typed back one word. "Always." Tanasha hit send just as the Riyadh's sunset-lit doorway came into view. She slipped inside, the scent of orange blossom soap and warm plaster greeting her like a familiar whisper. At the top of the stairs, Arden was waiting. Hair tousled from hours of work. Laptop finally closed. A hesitant smile tugging at her mouth. "You came back fast," Arden said softly. "I had a good reason." Tanasha ran her fingers through Arden's blonde locks, her face tender. "You asked me to get lost with you." Arden stepped closer, just enough for their breaths to mingle. "I meant it. There's a whole city out there. I don't want to wander it alone." "You won't," Tanasha murmured. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Arden reached out, brushing a thumb over the strap of Tanasha's camera, her touch slow, almost reverent. "Stay a while," Arden said. Not a question. A hope. "I'm already staying," Tanasha answered, voice warm. Outside, Marrakesh hummed alive again, bustling, bright, electric. But for once, the rush didn't pull them away. It drew them closer. The world had gone quiet to bring them together. Now it was blazing with color, sound, and possibility. And this time, the connection didn't vanish when the lights came back on. It held. It deepened. It softened into something warm and certain. Something that felt like the beginning of a story neither had planned for.
Hi ladies. Thanks for sticking around till the end. I'm just one African storyteller, sharing love stories the world told us to hide. Please subscribe and help keep these voices alive, one story at a time.